everyone, this is Jerome with Diffbot. A few weeks ago I had a chance to sit down with Dhruv Gulati, the founder and chairman of Factmata. Factmata is a technology startup founded on a vision to detect and measure the harmfulness of online content. It might be easy for someone like you or me to identify biased or offensive content when we see it, but how do we scale that up to the billions of tweets, articles, and posts made each day on the internet? This is where Factmata's products come in. Factmata uses Diffbot to extract clean, structured data from articles throughout the web, then funnel it into their natural language algorithm for classification across 19 signals of possible harmfulness. So as a marketer, I'm always looking out for ways to improve ad spend and conversion. In this interview, Dhruv shares his thoughts about why content quality and fake news are actually important signals that advertisers might want to pay attention to. So yeah, it's the end of your day right now, I'm assuming.
Yes, it is.
So I appreciate you making this time. I've been doing so much research into Factmata yourself, and I'm really excited for this. I am genuinely curious about this. I've talked about this with several people. So my sort of philosophical question is, how do we go from this engagement model where Facebook and the Twitters and the social medias of the world are trying to drive this engagement, and so they create these echo chambers of content that could be false? How do we change that model a little bit so it gets social media companies to want to prioritize finding, identifying false information?
So I actually personally think that Twitter and Facebook are actually doing quite a lot on fake news and misinformation right now. Definitely was not the case probably about 4 years ago or even 2 years ago. But they've invested billions of dollars on this problem, and they've hired hundreds of probably thousands of people in these departments. They made a couple of acquisitions. I think the issue is not that they're taking a stand on these things. It's more that we need an entirely new system, right? We need a system that where the platform is monetized differently to advertising, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we also need a platform which enables, thinks about completely new product features and new flows of the platform where users are incentivized to create their own ranking systems. Users are encouraged to take content down or flag it. There's inherently an incentive for people on the platform to create quality content.
Right.
Right. That I think is a really important point. Imagine a platform where you were paid to write good quality content. Your content was valued according to its quality rather than its virality.
Right.
That doesn't exist right now on the web. In fact, if you write a piece of content, you're rewarded by the number of claps or the number of likes or shares that content gets. You're not actually evaluated on the quality of the piece because there's no measurement system for quality or fakeness or how well balanced the piece is. So that's kind of it. Just going back to Factmata, that goes back to what we're trying to build, and we started with this vision of a quality score for a piece of content.
I think you mentioned earlier that advertisers are not super interested in quality of content, but they should be. Aren't they interested a little bit on where their ads are being placed next
It's
to?
starting now. Yeah, it is definitely starting now. I'd say definitely at the beginning of the business, that wasn't a key concern for advertisers. We're now 4 years into building Factmata, and now we're at this point where we are about to start 2 really major kind of contracts with a couple of ad platforms, and we're getting a lot of inbound interest for our ad offering. And essentially, it's basically preventing an advertiser from placing an ad next to some unsavory content. There are some studies that have shown that users are kind of, I think it's 27% less likely to buy from brands that place on fake news sites. But it's taken some time to get that data and actually do some real tests and studies. Advertisers focus more on not placing ads on really hateful things, and now we're moving into not placing ads on COVID misinformation, for example. So misinformation, disinformation has been this really weird gray area. People don't know where to put that bucket. Whether it's is it in hate speech? Is it in harmful content? Is it something else? Is it way too subjective and gray area? Do we not want to touch this? And so that's why I think the roadmaps of these companies have taken so long to actually build a consistent plan to deal with it, because it's just not it's hard to like see where this fits into like the overall priorities of the company. So there have been from advertisers that we've spoken to, and there is a growing debate around the value of the open web.
Mhm.
Effectively, like is it valuable to for a brand that's like really reputable to
Mhm.
try and advertise to all these random niche websites and go open, just like
Mhm.
programmatic web,
Mhm.
rather than pick 50 sites that they know are really good quality and then just only advertise on those? So you're kind of like saying like, do we want to take the risk of like going for massive reach,
Mhm.
um, versus just like kind of going small? So there is that debate that basically if you are in a really good quality article, and they have like, they obviously hard code it, so they have a list of like New York Times equals good quality article. They have done studies that have shown that like people actually go on the page, they hover on the actual page, they actually
Mhm.
read the article, but I think like more like 1.3 seconds more or something, um, which is great for an advertiser to know that, because it means that it's proof that they should advertise on a high quality page because they're on the page more, right? They're not just
Right.
like clicking off it.
Right.
So that's a really helpful study to advance the cause. Like the other, because it's showing that you can actually make money
Mhm.
from advertising on quality content,
Mhm.
because it means your ads are more viewable. And then the second thing is, some people were also talking about kind of, well, actually, if we advertise on high quality articles, we're actually like likely to hit a higher income audience, right?
Mhm.
A audience that just like earns more, right?
Yep.
People who read the New York Times or whatever, the New Yorker or something like this, and thus, actually for some brands that actually might be a good thing to
Right.
make sure that they're only hitting those pages because um, the buying power of the actual people who are clicking the ads is higher, so the likelihood of
Mhm.
conversion is higher. Ultimately, I think about the entire problem around fake news as a business model problem, right?
Yeah.
So if we can start to have these kind of like insights, data, like proof points that show that like fake news is really bad for business,
Yep.
then I think we'll be able to solve the problem.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think what's really powerful that Factmata has created is just the fact that you can measure this now
Yeah.
objectively, right? Rather than just having a human, quote unquote, rate this, which could wax or wane depending on maybe how they're feeling for the day, uh, or the group that you've hired to look at the data.
So we actually have a customer that's writing articles onto the Facebook platform, and they basically use us to detect if their headlines are clickbait or not. And so every single article that's written on their platform essentially goes through our checks, and they basically found that if they were writing clickbait, they'd be banned from Facebook. So they're actually paying us to prevent, you know, prevent
Oh, that's
like
great.
being banned. So in a way, like it's a great use case I like because it's helping them win business,
Yep.
right? It's good for them to not get banned, obviously,
Yeah.
and they're paying us for that benefit. So it's like a
Right.
win-win for everyone. I'm definitely very proud about where we are right now as a business. We have now 19 different signals on the quality of online content. We used to have like six,
Mm.
but we have 19 very high quality natural language processing classifiers.
Hmm.
All of them are state of the art. They're beating benchmarks, each one of them, um, and public benchmarks, research benchmarks, for detecting things like controversy of a piece of content, detecting the objectivity of a piece of content, um, things like hate speech detection, sexism, racism, um, hyperpartisanship detection.
Hmm.
So we have about 19 of these different classifiers. And it's taken us kind of 3 4 years to perfect them, but what we're releasing this year is essentially we're not calling it a quality score, we're calling it a threat score, but that will be combining every single model that we built through our history into one single score.
So we've got about 2 minutes left. What's next for Factmata? Has your like 5, 10 year vision changed for Factmata at all, or based on current events?
Yeah, so the 10-year plan was always like step one, prove that there's enterprise value.
Hmm.
And we're starting to do that this year. We're about to close some really big contracts and deals with enterprises in different markets.
Hmm.
Early next year, we'll be launching this product, which will be kind of trying to move us into much more of a mass market kind of
Mm.
system where anyone can use the product. And that was the
Mm.
goal of this phase two, which is like building a kind of social, viral kind of manifestation of the
Yeah.
Factmata engine. Um, it's probably not going to be a social media platform, which is what we had in mind at the beginning, but
Mm.
it's definitely going to be a way to access the actual engine that we built and allow that for anyone. And then phase three is about distribution of our engine into other platforms like
Mm.
Facebook and Twitter and Diffbot and so on. So phase three is more about integrations
Right.
and obviously like it's difficult to have a 10-year vision on the web, but I think that's the vision that we want to stick to, because I think I knew that it would take some time for big platforms to want to integrate, let's say, a quality score or a safety score, a threat score,
Mm.
because they want to build stuff themselves, or like there isn't a market for it, or it's too much work to change their ranking system or whatever it is. But I think in time, we're going to see much more interest in integrations of this sort of product.
Yeah. That takes us back to the beginning of this of this meeting, right? Just what kind of model does it take for a business like a social media company to uh, actually start prioritizing and optimizing for threat scores, for or reduction of threat scores, for quality of content, more
Yeah,
objectively factual content.
and that's why maybe the 10-year plan was quite pressing, because like it might actually take. I thought it might take 10 years for them to like have to integrate a new ranking system. So
Mm.
it might be like in 5 years' time, when we're in phase three of the 10-year plan for Factmata, like there's like regulation that's like
Yeah.
forcing the platforms.
Thanks so
So
much for your time. I appreciate it.
yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, and yeah, looking like thanks for the time, and looking forward to seeing the video.
All right. Take
Thanks.
care. Have a good
Bye.
evening.
Bye.